Fascinating creatures. These humans, I muttered, adjusting my ocular enhancers as I observed the latest arrival to the Intergalactic Combat Assessment Facility. As Chief Medical Officer Krax, I had witnessed countless species step through those gleaming quantum gates, but something about this one made my secondary heart flutter with anticipation. The human female Maya Rodriguez, according to her file, stood a mere 1.7 meters tall. By the great void, she looked almost fragile compared to the towering Nexan warriors or the crystalline Zentari who had arrived earlier. Yet there was something in her stance, a quiet confidence that made my dorsal spines tingle with warning. Officer Voa's Admiral Zell's gravelly voice interrupted my observations. Your initial assessment. I turned all four of my eyes toward the Admiral, my medical interface, still scanning the human's vital signs. Quite remarkable, actually. Her bone density is unprecedented for a species from a 1G world. Muscle fiber composition suggests incredible explosive power, and her nervous system. I paused, recalibrating my readings. Well, it's unlike anything in our database. The assessment chamber hummed with energy as Maya Rodriguez completed her warm-up routine. Her movements were precise, controlled, yet carried an almost predatory grace. The other medical officers whispered among themselves, their appendages twitching with a mixture of professional curiosity and instinctive unease. You seem troubled, Krax Admiral Zell noted, his ceremonial armor catching the light as he shifted position. Not troubled. Precisely, I adjusted my neural interface, bringing up comparison data. But this is the first time we've had a Deathworlder participate in the trials. Their pain tolerance levels are concerning. The Admiral's brow ridges raised slightly. Concerning how? According to these readings, they can consciously override their pain responses. Their bodies produce natural compounds that can. A thunderous crash interrupted my explanation. Maya had just shattered one of the assessment chamber's reinforced training drones with a single fluid combination of strikes. The drone, designed to withstand the force of a Krantak war beast, lay in pieces, while the human simply rolled her shoulders and asked for another. Spirits of the void, one of my junior officers whispered, all 6 of his appendages trembling. Did you see how she smiled? Indeed, I had. That was perhaps the most unsettling part. Where other species showed aggression or determination in combat, this human displayed something else entirely: enjoyment, as if the violence was a dance and she was merely warming up for the main performance. Admiral, I said, my professional detachment wavering slightly. I believe we may need to recalibrate our assessment parameters. Standard protocols may be insufficient. Maya Rodriguez turned toward our observation platform, offering a respectful bow that somehow managed to look both courteous and predatory. In that moment, watching her eyes scan our positions with calculated precision, I realized we weren't just dealing with another tournament participant. We were dealing with something that could change everything we thought we knew about combat capability. And judging by the growing crowd of spectators gathering at the chamber's edges, I wasn't the only one who sensed the grand arena of the Intergalactic Combat Assessment Facility buzzed with an energy that made my medical sensors spike. 12 species had gathered for this centennial tournament, each bringing their most formidable warriors. The prize? A seat on the Galactic Defense Council and, more importantly, the right to train the next generation of peacekeepers. Quite the menagerie this cycle, I commented to Admiral Zell as we watched the contestants gather for the opening ceremony. The crystalline Zentari twins sparkled under the arena lights, their silicon-based bodies capable of becoming diamond-hard in seconds. Nearby, a Veloxi warrior stretched its chitinous limbs, acid glands gleaming. 3 Mordarian psychic warriors floated in their containment fields, their mental powers already testing the arena's PSI shields. But it was Draknor who dominated the space. Standing nearly 3 meters tall, the champion from the high-gravity world of Nexan Prime made even other seasoned warriors step back. His exoskeletal armor, naturally grown and enhanced with biotechnology, bore the marks of 100 victories. Not a single defeat. Not ever. The rules remain unchanged, Admiral Zell announced, his voice resonating through the arena. Victory by submission or incapacitation. Death is an automatic disqualification. He paused, his secondary eyes focusing on Draknor. As is the use of biological weapons or psychic attacks that cause permanent damage. I noticed Maya Rodriguez studying the rulebook on her neural tablet, her expression unnervingly calm. When Draknor approached her, supposedly to intimidate, she didn't even look up. "You smell of weakness," human Draknor rumbled, his translator barely handling the subharmonics of his native tongue. "Your bones will make excellent trophies." Maya finally raised her eyes from the tablet. "Interesting," she replied, her voice carrying clearly across the arena. "Where I come from, those who talk about collecting trophies usually end up becoming one themselves." The silence that followed was absolute. No one, in all the recorded cycles of the tournament, had ever spoken to Draknor that way. His victory record was legendary: 47 opponents, all defeated within the first round. Most never fought again. Medical Officer Voas Admiral Zell murmured, "Your professional opinion on the human's chances." I watched as Maya resumed reading, completely ignoring the fuming Draknor. My medical scanners showed her heart rate hadn't elevated even slightly during the confrontation. "Admiral," I replied, feeling my dorsal spines ripple with unease, "I'm beginning to think we're not watching a potential victim. We might be observing the emergence of a new apex predator." The tournament brackets appeared on the massive holoscreen, and the crowd roared as the matchups were revealed. Maya Rodriguez versus a Xanthari Crystal Warrior in the first round. Draknor against a Mordarian Psychic Master. The path was set. All we could do now was watch, document, and pray to the void that our medical facilities were adequate for whatever was about to unfold. The first round began with Draknor's match against the Mordarian Psychic Master. It was brutal, efficient, and terrifying. The Mordarian never stood a chance. Before their mental attacks could penetrate Draknor's neural shields, he had already crossed the arena. One massive strike shattered their containment field, and a second blow knocked them unconscious. 18 seconds. "A new record. Primitive brute force," someone muttered in the medical observation booth. But I noticed something others missed: the precise targeting of the Mordarian's neural clusters. Draknor wasn't just strong, he was surgically precise. Then came Maya Rodriguez's first match. The Xanthari Crystal Warrior, Kixtal, was a crowd favorite. Their crystalline form could withstand direct plasma shots, and their edges could slice through battleship armor. As they stepped into the arena, their body began its transformation, surfaces becoming diamond-hard and razor-sharp. "Begin," Admiral Zell commanded. What happened next made my medical sensors overload. Maya moved with a speed that seemed to bend reality. She didn't attack the Xanthari's crystalline body, she targeted the microsecond transformations between states. Each strike hit exactly when Kixtal was shifting forms, exploiting momentary weaknesses no other species had ever even noticed. "Impossible," my junior officer gasped. "She's predicting the crystalline phase changes. But how?" I adjusted my scanners, capturing every detail. "She's not predicting. She's reading micro-movements, anticipating. Look at her pupils, they're tracking crystal formation patterns." The fight ended when Maya caught Kixtal in mid-transformation, using their own momentum to slam them into the arena floor. The impact created a web of cracks in their crystalline form. Not enough to cause serious harm, but more than enough for a submission victory. The next 2 days saw both our frontrunners advance through the brackets. Draknor continued his streak of devastating victories. A Veloxy warrior lasted 40 seconds before their exoskeleton cracked. A Jovian gas form was compressed into unconsciousness in under a minute. But it was Maya's fights that truly captivated us. Against a swarm mind collective, she somehow isolated and disabled the queen node with surgical precision. When faced with a quantum-shifted warrior who could exist in multiple probability states simultaneously, she adapted mid-fight to target the convergence points where all versions had to reunite. "It's not just physical capability," I explained to Admiral Zell after Maya's quarter-final victory. "She's displaying pattern recognition and combat adaptation at unprecedented levels. Each fight, she's not just winning, she's learning." The Admiral nodded gravely. "And Draknor?" We both turned to watch the arena's maintenance crews replacing the reinforced flooring after Draknor's latest match. His opponent, a gravity manipulator from the Cygnus cluster, was in our medical bay with multiple fractures. "He's escalating," I replied, checking the medical data. "Each victory makes him more aggressive. The last 3 opponents required extensive reconstruction surgery." "Your assessment of their inevitable confrontation?" Before I could answer, a commotion erupted in the contestant area. Maya was calmly walking past Draknor's preparation chamber when he emerged, blocking her path. "Your technique is flawed, human," he growled. "You strike to disable. I strike to destroy." Maya looked up at him, her expression eerily serene. There's a saying on Earth, the most dangerous predators don't need to advertise. The tension in that moment was palpable. My medical scanners recorded stress responses from every alien species in the vicinity: elevated heart rates, defense mechanism activation, flight responses triggering. Every species except two. "Admiral," I said quietly, "I believe we're about to witness something unprecedented." "The question isn't who will win," I paused, watching Maya walk away as Draknor's rage filled the air. "The question is what we'll learn about the true nature of combat excellence when they finally meet." The semi-finals were tomorrow. The entire facility hummed with anticipation. Two undefeated fighters. Two completely different approaches to combat. And I couldn't shake the feeling that we'd only seen a fraction of what either was capable of. Multiple fractures detected. Initiating emergency protocols, the medical alert screamed through my neural interface as Maya Rodriguez hit the arena wall with devastating force. Her semi-final opponent, the Neuraxian plasma shifter, had finally landed a solid hit. My team rushed to the arena's edge, medical scanners whirring. The impact would have liquefied the internal organs of most species. The readings made my primary heart skip 3 broken ribs, left ulna fractured, hairline fracture in the skull, internal bleeding. Match suspension required, my junior officer called out. Contestant Rodriguez has sustained Category 4 trauma. But Maya was already standing. Negative on match suspension, she said, spitting blood onto the arena floor. The Neuraxian, Vex Thor, paused in surprise. No one had ever gotten up from one of his plasma-enhanced strikes. "This is unprecedented," I reported to Admiral Zell, who had appeared at my side. "Her pain readings are off the scale, but she's somehow suppressing the nerve signals. The human endocrine system is flooding her body with compounds we've never seen in these combinations." Maya rolled her shoulders, and I heard the distinct sound of bone fragments grinding. "Officer Vo," she called out, making every alien in the arena flinch. "I know you can hear my vitals. Tell them I'm good to continue." "Good too." "Are you insane?" I switched to the arena's public channel. "You have multiple severe fractures, internal bleeding, possible concussion." She turned to face our medical station, and I saw something in her eyes that made my exoskeleton tighten. "That's not a no." From his observation pod, Draknor watched with newfound intensity. I saw his bio reading spike with. Was that fear? "Admiral," I said quietly, "by every medical protocol we have, I should stop this match." But I hesitated, watching as Maya shifted into a modified combat stance, clearly adapting to her injuries. But I don't think we have the right to. She's not just fighting through the pain, she's using it. Look at her neural patterns. The Neuraxian struck again. A combination of plasma-enhanced blows that should have finished the match. Maya moved differently now, each motion precise and economical. Where before she had been fluid and dynamic, now she was mathematical, lethal. The end came suddenly. Vex Thor, pressing what he thought was his advantage, left his plasma form for a killing strike. Maya's counterattack, executed with broken bones and internal bleeding, hit 5 critical points simultaneously. The Neuraxian dropped, unconscious before he hit the ground. In the stunned silence that followed, I ran another medical scan. The results were impossible. The damage was extensive, career-ending by any rational standard. Yet her combat effectiveness had actually increased. "I'm clearing her for the finals," I announced, my voice shaking slightly. Admiral Zell's head snapped toward me. "Based on what medical criteria?" "None," I admitted. "But I'm beginning to think our understanding of medical criteria, like our understanding of combat itself, needs to be reevaluated. We're not watching a warrior fight through pain, Admiral. We're watching someone who has mastered it." Maya limped toward the medical station, each step leaving a small bloodstain on the arena floor. "Save the detailed work for after the finals," she said. "Just patch what you have to." As my team began emergency treatment, I noticed Draknor had left his observation pod. For the first time in tournament history, the undefeated champion looked unsure of his victory. The arena fell silent as Maya Rodriguez stepped onto the battle platform. My medical scanners continued their relentless stream of warnings: fractures incompletely healed, internal bleeding risk elevated, cranial trauma detected. 26 hours was not enough time for proper recovery. even with our advanced medical technologies. Across the arena, Draknor emerged from his preparation chamber, his bioengineered armor gleaming under the lights. 3 meters of evolved killing perfection, unchanged and undefeated through 47 matches. The contrast between them was almost absurd, a damaged human facing a living weapon. Final match protocols in effect, Admiral Zell announced. Victory by submission or incapacitation only. He paused, looking directly at Draknor. Lethal force will result in immediate disqualification. The crowd had doubled since the semifinals, with representatives from 30 different species packed into the observation galleries. The Galactic Defense Council itself had convened an emergency session to watch. Begin, Admiral Zell commanded. Draknor struck first, crossing the arena with frightening speed. His initial blow would have decapitated a Zentari crystal warrior. Maya slipped past it with millimeters to spare, but I saw her wince. The movement had reopened something internally. Fascinating, my senior assistant murmured. Look at her neural patterns. She's processing pain signals differently now. He was right. Where most species try to block pain, Maya's brain was actively incorporating it into her combat calculations. Each injury became a data point, each limitation a parameter to solve for. The fight escalated quickly. Draknor's attacks came faster, harder, his exoskeletal armor shifting to generate devastating combinations. Maya met each one with precise counters, but the cost was visible. Fresh blood spotted the arena floor. My scanners detected new microfractures forming with each block. She can't sustain this, Admiral Zell said quietly. No one can. Then Draknor landed a direct hit. The impact echoed through the arena like a thunderclap. Maya flew backward, hit the ground, rolled. My sensors screened 2 more ribs broken, shoulder dislocated. The crowd gasped as she struggled to rise. Draknor paused, mandibles clicking in what passed for laughter in his species. Accept defeat, human. Your bones are breaking. Your organs are failing. You cannot win. Maya got to her feet. Blood ran from her nose, her lip, but her eyes. Her eyes had changed. You still don't understand, she said, her voice carrying clearly despite her injuries. Pain isn't weakness leaving the body. Pain is data. And you've just given me everything I need to know about how you fight. What happened next defied medical science. Maya shifted her stance, deliberately putting pressure on her broken bones. Her neural readings transformed. She wasn't just fighting through the pain, she was weaponizing it. Each injury became a point of focus, each limitation transformed into an opportunity. Impossible, my junior officer whispered. Her combat efficiency is increasing. Draknor charged again, but this time Maya met him differently. She used her broken body like a puzzle to be solved, each movement a calculated risk. When Draknor struck high, she ducked under, letting her damaged shoulder guide the motion. When he swept low, she leaped, using the sharp pain of her fractured ribs to fuel the movement. The crowd watched in horror and awe as Maya began to push back. Each exchange now ended with Draknor taking damage. Small hits at first, targeting gaps in his exoskeletal armor. Then bigger ones, precisely placed to disrupt his bioengineered defensive systems. Look at her cardiac readings, I reported, my professional fascination overriding my horror. She's maintaining peak combat efficiency with injuries that should have her in cardiac arrest. The human pain response isn't just different, it's evolved into something else entirely. Draknor began to show signs of frustration. His attacks became more aggressive, less controlled. Maya capitalized on every mistake, using his superior strength against him. She moved like water around his strikes, each motion appearing almost casual despite the broken bones and internal damage. Then came the turning point. Draknor committed to a full power strike, putting all his genetically enhanced strength behind it. Maya didn't dodge. Instead, she stepped into the blow, accepting the damage to get inside his guard. The impact shattered her remaining unbroken ribs, but it gave her what she needed, a perfect angle on Draknor's primary neural cluster. Her counterstrike was beautiful in its simplicity. A combination learned from the Zentari, refined against the Neuraxian, and now executed with broken hands against the most dangerous fighter in the galaxy. 3 hits. Precise. Perfect. Devastating. Draknor's exoskeletal armor cracked. His enhanced nervous system, overloaded by the precise targeting of his neural clusters, began to shut down. The undefeated champion fell to his knees, his massive form shaking with system failures. "Submit," Maya said quietly, positioning herself for a killing stroke she would never deliver. "You fought well, but it's over." The silence in the arena was absolute. Draknor, his legendary combat systems failing, looked up at the broken human who had achieved the impossible. "I submit," he growled. The crowd erupted. 48 matches, 48 victories. The streak was broken by a human fighting with shattered bones and ruptured organs. Maya stayed standing just long enough to acknowledge the victory. Then, finally, she allowed herself to collapse. My medical team rushed forward, our scanners painting a picture of incredible damage. As we stabilized her for emergency treatment, she caught my eye. "Worth it," she whispered, managing a smile despite everything. Tell them this is how humans win. We don't just endure pain, we learn from it, adapt to it, master it." As we rushed her to medical bay, I noticed something extraordinary in my final scans. Her body was already beginning to heal, adapting to the damage in ways our science had never seen. Even unconscious, she was learning, evolving, preparing for the next challenge. The humans hadn't just sent us a warrior, they'd sent us a glimpse of what combat evolution truly meant. And nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same. 3 days after the final match, I stood in the medical bay, reviewing Maya Rodriguez's recovery scans with a panel of the galaxy's leading xenobiologists. The data made no sense, yet the evidence was right in front of us. "The bone regeneration rate is exponential," I explained, displaying the latest readings. "Her body isn't just healing, it's reinforcing. Every break is mending stronger than before." The assembled medical experts murmured in astonishment as tissue reconstruction imagery played across our screens. In the recovery pod, Maya slept peacefully, her vital signs stable and improving. The massive trauma that should have ended her career was becoming a footnote in her medical history. Even Draknor, who had finally requested permission to visit, seemed unable to comprehend her recovery speed. "Your medical technology is impressive," the former champion observed, his own damages still visible in his asymmetrical stance. "This isn't our technology," I replied, watching new bone tissue form in real time. "We're merely providing support. The healing, this is all her, all human." The news of the match had spread across the galaxy. The Galactic Defense Council's emergency session had stretched into its 3rd day. Reports flooded in of human representatives being approached with new treaty offers, military alliances, and research partnerships. Admiral Zell joined us in the medical bay, his ceremonial armor replaced with formal diplomatic attire. "The Council has reached several decisions," he announced. "First, the combat training protocols are being completely revised. The human understanding of pain adaptation will be central to the new curriculum." "And the other decisions?" I asked, noting Maya's brainwave patterns shifting toward consciousness. "The classification of Earth has been officially updated. They're no longer listed merely as a Deathworld species." The Admiral paused, mandibles twitching with what I recognized as respect. "They're now classified as prime combat evolution specialists. Every major military force in the galaxy is requesting human combat instructors." Maya's eyes opened slowly, focusing first on Draknor, then on me. "Did someone say something about combat instruction?" Her voice was weak but carried that same unshakable confidence. "How are you feeling?" I asked, checking her neural readings. "Like I got hit by a cargo transport," she smiled, then nodded respectfully to Draknor. "No offense." The former champion's mandibles clicked in what I now recognized as genuine amusement. "I have served as combat instructor for 3 centuries," he said. "Yet I find myself wanting to ask you questions." First question, Maya shifted carefully in the recovery pod. "Why did you think breaking bones would stop a human? We evolved on a planet that actively tried to kill us. Pain is just another survival tool." The monitoring equipment recorded the exact moment when understanding dawned across every alien face in the room. Humans hadn't evolved to avoid pain or endure it. They'd evolved to use it, to learn from it, to become stronger because of it. "The combat training facility is yours," Admiral Zell announced. "Assuming you accept the position." Maya's vital signs spiked with excitement. "When do we start?" "The Council insists you complete your recovery first," I interjected, trying to maintain some medical authority. "Though given your healing rate, that could be as soon as next week." Good Maya sat up straighter, and I noticed she was already adapting her movements to protect her healing injuries, because I have some ideas about improving the training protocols, starting with how we think about limitations. As the others filed out, I stayed behind to complete my final medical report. How do you document the moment when an entire galaxy's understanding of combat evolution changes? How do you quantify the impact of discovering that what we considered debilitating injury was, to humans, just another form of combat data? Maya caught my eye as I worked. You know what the best part is, Officer Vos? I wasn't even close to my limits. I believe her. And that, perhaps, is the most profound impact of all the realization that we had only seen the beginning of what humans could teach us about the true nature of combat evolution. The galaxy would never look at broken bones the same way again.